Good morning. That was a first for me, where I had to start over twice and delete my video. But anyways, I hope thrice, the third time will be best. But I was saying it's Father's Day weekend, and we're getting ready to celebrate all the dads, and it reminds me of one of my favorite jokes about this guy who comes home from work. He had a long day at work, he's tired, and he sits down on the recliner, and he says, "Honey, could you get me a beer before it starts?" She brings him a beer. Then he says, "Honey, could you get me chips before it starts?" And she gets him chips. And then he says, "Honey, could you help me take off my shoes before it starts?" She helps him take off his shoes. And he says, "Honey, could you get me some dinner before it starts?" And his wife lays into him, "You lazy good for nothing, you nobody, all you do is da 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 da." And he says, "Never mind, it already started." In any case, I hope you're having a great morning. I'm sitting here in the shade. The sun is beating, it's warm outside, but when you're in the protection of the shade, it makes you feel the breeze. It's nice outside, it's much cooler. And sometimes, I think about the metaphor of parents. Sometimes there are trees, they protect us from all the different weather, inclement weathers and things that are going on, so we could be protected and in the shade of their love, which is so important. And again, we're celebrating the dads today. I want to tell you something about a verse in this week's Torah portion and a story that happened with me about 8 years ago. So when God's punishing the spies and the whole generation for deciding that they don't want to go into Israel, God says something very interesting. God says, "Listen, guys, first God wanted to wipe out the Jews, and Moses says, how could you do this? What will Egypt say? What will everyone say that you have no courage and you couldn't bring them into the land of Israel?" So God says, "You know what, no problem. You guys, you're going to spend 40 years in the desert and you'll die a slow death, a natural death." But then he says like this, "V'tapchem, and your children, asher amartem levaz yiyeh, which you said will be for naught. There's no hope for the children. Hema, they will come to the land. I'll bring them there. But they will know the land which you despised, which you did not want to go to." God says, "Listen, I'm not letting you go. You're punished. You didn't want to go. You'll stay here. But your children that you gave up hope on and you said had no hope of going to the land, they will go to the land of Israel." I think it was 8 years ago, there was this big deal where there was a new Pew Research did a study on the future of Judaism and how Jews, especially young Jews, are apathetic to Judaism, and that the future of Judaism looks very bleak. And every year we get such studies about how much young Jews care for Israel and how much young Jews care for Judaism and how much intermarriages, etc., etc. So this was a big poll that came out, a big study that came out maybe 8 years ago, and the whole Jewish world was talking about it. And I was speaking to this Reform rabbi, he's a friend, and we were talking about it. And he said to me, he made this remark to me, he says, "Rabbi," he says, "I feel like we're on a sinking ship." Those were the words he used. "I feel like we're on a sinking ship." And I was like, of course, taken aback. I says, "What do you mean we're on a sinking ship?" And he says, look what's going on with Judaism. Look how apathetic the Jews are. Look how little they care. What hope do we have? What's going to be? And I looked at him and I said, "My friend," I said, "the ship ain't sinking. There's only one question. Who's going to be on that ship? Are we going to be on it? Are our children going to be on it? Or are we going to become irrelevant?" The future of Judaism is bright. You know why it's bright? Because God tells us that. Because God guarantees it. Not just that King David will never cease from his kingship, but God also says, the prophet says, "Netzach Yisrael lo yishakar," the eternity of Judaism, of the Jewish people, not just as a race, but as a faith, will last forever. And that's what God tells the Jewish people here. "V'tapchem," you gave up maybe, and you figured what kind of hope is there, what kind of future is there in the land of Israel. Those children, they will go to the land. Question is, how do we guarantee that our children should be on that ship? That our children should be the future for Judaism? And that, the Torah tells us something very interesting right afterwards in the portion. God tells Moses, when you come to the land of Israel, you gotta take your choicest, you have to give to Hashem, you have to give as a gift to Hashem. The first, the choicest, the best. You know, when the previous Rebbe came to America after the Holocaust, and they were setting up schools, and a lot of the schools we're going to have in America, they're going to have part of the day Hebrew studies and part of the day secular studies. And the Rebbe insisted on one thing. He says, fine, if you have to have equal studies or both studies, even if you have to have the same amount studying secular studies and Judaic studies in the yeshivas, that's one thing. But the morning, the beginning of the day, has to be dedicated to Jewish studies, to prayer, and the spiritual studies. And the Frierdiker Rebbe explained two things. First of all, he says, in the morning, your mind is sharper, your head works better, you're more excited, you're more enthusiastic. Those are the most important hours of your day. And those hours have to be dedicated to Hashem. Sometimes it's not only how much time you give, but it's what the quality of it is, what the importance of it is. And the Frierdiker Rebbe says that, look, we might have to have equal studies, secular and religious studies, but what's going to come first? What are you going to give your best hours to? If you go back to Genesis, when Kalev, when Abel and Cain are both giving gifts to Hashem, right? And then Cain kills Abel. What happened there? So the rabbis explain us, and the Torah tells us, that they both gave gifts to God. But what Cain did was, he would work his whole day, get whatever he had, and then he would check whatever looked worst, whatever was, he didn't want, so to speak, whatever was insignificant to him. He said, here, I'll give that to God. Hevel was the opposite. Hevel, he made sure he went through the day, he got the best fruits and all the things that he worked on, and then he would choose the choicest, the best, and he gave it as a gift to Hashem. And that's why God took Hevel's gift, Abel's gift, and he didn't take Cain's gift. And that's why Cain got so upset at his brother. Why is God taking yours and not mine? And the answer was very simple. Because Hevel is not just giving because he has to. He's not just giving his rotten apples. He's giving his best, his choicest to Hashem. And that's what the Torah is telling us in this week's Torah portion. When you give to God, you have to give Reishis, you have to give your best, you have to give your first. You have to give your choicest. You want to know what's going to make sure that our children, that the children that we thought might go to waste, Hema Yeshua, they will inherit the land, they will inherit a love for Torah, they will inherit an excitement, a passion to be Jewish, they will carry on the link. You know how you do that? You got to give the best to God. You got to give your choices to God. You know, when I grew up as a young kid in Brooklyn, my parents were both immigrants, and they were both orphans. You know, my father lost his mother at 7 years old. My mom lost her dad at 2 years old. They immigrated to America. They came to live in a community full of immigrants, and they lived a very simple life. And they worked very hard. My dad would work physical labor 10, 12 hours a day. But you know what made the biggest impact on me? That whenever my father had free time, whenever he had a moment that he didn't have to work, that was his choice to decide what to do, that he wasn't forced to do something because he had to take care of his family, because he had to pay bills, because he had to go to work. When he had a moment that was his, I saw him studying. I saw him praying. How many nights did I watch my father fall asleep in the kitchen, still with his Sefer, with his Maimonides, finishing his studies for the day. And you know what it taught me? It taught me where my father wanted to be, what he wanted to do. It taught me where he gave his best, where he gave the things that gave him the opportunity. And it made an indelible mark on my soul and on my conscience. And that's the message of this week's Torah portion, and that's really the message to all the fathers as we get to Father's Day. We gotta show our kids that our best, that our choice is, that our first, we give to Hashem. If we want our kids to be on that ship that's not gonna sink, the ship of Judaism that continues on its journey to bring the light of God, to bring the love of God to this world, we have to make sure that our kids see the lesson in us, that v'tabchem, your children won't be lavaz, they won't be for waste. They will know that we cherish, that we have a passion, that we give our best, that we give our first, that we give our choicest to Hashem. And then they will be the same excited. They will be exuberant. They will be enthusiastic. They will be passionate. They will be full of love for Judaism. Judaism will thrive. The boat will continue to sail, and they'll be on it, celebrating a link of over 3,500 years that God gave us. Have a great Shabbos. See you tomorrow. For those that are coming, we're celebrating 2 bar mitzvahs. Be amazing. Social distance. Everyone will be wearing a mask, but we'll be celebrating those young children that are the future of Judaism, that are continuing Judaism, and are thriving in their love to Hashem. Have a great day and a Shabbat Shalom.